Yo, what's going on guys, Chills here, and Powercreep is a very popular topic in the Honkai Star community at the moment, probably because of the Mr. Pokey tweet that went out and the kind of huge semi-drama going on around it. So in this video, I want to discuss what is going on with the Powercreep and how do I see Honkai Star Powercreeping, because a lot of people say the Powercreep is really drastic, some people say that it doesn't really matter at all, and some people just don't really care at all. So I'm going to discuss what Powercreep kind of is, and I'm going to kind of explain to you guys what Powercreep is in Honkai Star. Is it absolute Powercreep, relative Powercreep, stuff like that. Anyways, if you guys enjoy discussions like this, and drop a sub on the channel, it'll help me out quite a lot. And if you guys are interested in discussing more of these games and anime in the Discord server, then feel free to join discord.gg/expresstrain. With all of that out of the way, let's get right into the video. Now, the first thing that I do want to emphasize, there are two different types of power creep: absolute power creep and relative power creep. To put both in simple terms, absolute power creep is more when something is directly power creep, so it is like an insane direct buff or insane direct change to where one unit is put out of the meta while another is dominantly meta. And relative power creep is kind of the same thing but on a lesser scale. So for example, if you guys play Genshin Impact, it's like Hu Tao and Arlecchino. Obviously Hu Tao is still viable to this day, but Arlecchino is obviously the stronger pyro DPS. Now, with the two concepts out of the way, let's start with Honkai Star and its core mechanisms. What I mean by core mechanisms is its core gameplay and the enemy design. So I'll have a character design and enemy design. So the first thing I will focus on is the character design, because that is probably the most important thing. When I think of the character design on Honkai Star, I think of the DPS characters, the harmony characters, how each new release allows for a better unit or a better character to power creep the previous character. Now, in my opinion, there isn't really an absolute power creep at the current moment. I would say the only character that had an absolute power creep was Acheron, but Acheron didn't put the other old DPS characters out of the meta at the time that she was out. When Acheron came out, Black Swan was right before her, and Black Swan and Dot was still somewhat viable, and also the other 1.0 units. So Jingliu and Dill were somewhat viable still because of the HP, and the HP wasn't exactly as crazy as it is right now. And so the old 1.0 units were viable, but Acheron was obviously a lot better, but it didn't make the game unplayable for the older units, making this relative power creep. Now, for those who are wondering where is this entire power creep argument even coming from, I'm going to say it is arguably the enemy design, because the enemy design is what impacts the player base and the overall vibe of power creep the most. And so the enemy design, in my opinion, is what has the most absolute power creep. The absolute power creep that I'm talking about is the HP pools, because it's not necessarily that there is absolute power creep going on within the character design themselves. Most characters are relatively being power crept. So for example, Acheron will always be a little bit better than Dill, but Dill was unusable at the time. But the thing that makes these old characters unusable is the enemy design, because they just want to HP sponge them. And I know this will be brought up constantly, but this is the issue. I promise you, this is the main issue that is going on. Howeververse does not go back and buff old units, so relative power creep cannot keep up with the absolute power creep that the enemies are having. And as for the game and how it's revolving overall, I would say it's relatively power creeping. It's not necessarily that it is coming out with a brand new mechanic and the brand new mechanic is like strictly dominant. For example, the Remembrance Path or the new archetype of Break. The Break archetype was a very strong relative power creep, but it wasn't absolute to where the game was unplayable if you did not have the Break team. The game was still playable for older units. If you didn't have a Break team, it would be a lot more difficult and you would clear out a lot lower cycles, but there was no insane power creep. Now, why are players so frustrated with the power creep, and why are they saying that this game has the highest power creep rate? Well, the answer to that is that the absolute power creep in the enemy design or the enemy HP pools cannot keep up with the relative power creep that the characters are having. So in turn, older characters will be left behind, not necessarily because the new units are so OP, but the old units cannot keep up with the HP pool. Hopefully this video was able to clarify a lot of the issues or a lot of the things that you guys are wondering about the power creep, because a lot of people are talking about it, but some people aren't really emphasizing the right things. So people are just saying that the game is outright power creeping. Every single character, every single harmony character is more broken than the next, which is partially true, but I'm not going to say that the game is strictly a power creep fest, as it is mainly the enemy design and Hoyoverse side. It's not necessarily the player skill issue side entirely. Anyways, for those who made it this far, thanks for listening throughout the discussion. If you guys want to leave your own opinion, then feel free to drop a comment. Please don't attack others in the comment section though. I know this is a very weird topic to discuss, because I know a lot of people are very subjective when it comes to this, so feel free to talk about it, just don't attack others. Anyways, if you guys enjoy RPG or JRPG content, then feel free to drop a sub on the channel. It'll help me out quite a lot. If you guys are interested in discussing any anime, games, JRPG, stuff like that, then feel free to join the Discord server, discord.gg/expresstrain. Thank you guys so much for watching again, and I'll see you you guys in the next video.